Part 21. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 201. Fu Xuanyi didn't even look at her. He pulled Wei Yuxian to a chair and sat down. He also pulled a chair and sat down next to her. If he hadn't seen so many people here, his Guai would be easily shy, and he would have held Guai on his lap. He gave Guan Jinyu a look and asked him to ask. Guan Jinyu nodded, indicating that he understood, and invited Qin Junling to a place further ahead so that Fu Xuanyi and others could hear clearly. He began to ask, "Mr. Qin, who is the mastermind behind the kidnapping of my wife this time?" Qin Junling's face was a little worried, and his mind was running rapidly to see if he could remove Qin Zimu as much as possible, but after thinking for a while, he couldn't think of a way to remove Qin Zimu. She could only say truthfully, "It's Xiao Mu." Guan Jinyu asked more clearly, "Is this the second young lady of your family, Qin Zimu?" Qin Junling tried his best to keep the expression on his face and nodded. Guan Jinyu, "Excuse me, where is the second lady at this moment? Is she on her way here?" Qin Junling took a deep breath and said, "She's downstairs. She'll probably be there soon." While talking, the office door was knocked again, and Guan Jinyu said, "Come in," towards the door. The door was opened, and a few more people came in. The office seemed extremely lively and became a little crowded. In addition to Qin Zimu, the people who came in were also the old man of the Qin family. Just when Qin Zimu was waiting for the elevator below, the old man Qin arrived, and the two of them happened to come up together. After that, they called people one after another. Qin Zimu called Fu's father and Fu's mother affectionately, uncle and aunt. If it had been in the past, the second elder would have responded to her with a smile. Not only would he have laughed, but he would also have asked her how she was doing. But now, the second elder's expression was cold, as if he was looking at a stranger. He said very coldly and said nothing more. She used to be nice to her because she was a descendant of the Qin family and because of Mr. Qin's reputation. Now, she dared to do something to their baby Yuxian. Then don't blame them for turning their backs on you. What's Yuxian's status in their Fu family? What is their status in their hearts? Is it comparable to Qin Zimu? Yuxian is the darling of their entire Fu family. The one with the most precious pimples. Even Shishi and Zizi have to be queued behind Yuxian. And this little girl from the Qin family dared to kidnap their family member Yuxian. She really didn't know how high the sky was. Mr. Qin also greeted Fu's father and Fu's mother, but only received a cold response from the two elders. Fu Xuanyi still didn't look at them, and he didn't even call Mr. Qin. He was completely focused on his baby, Guai. He looked at the swelling on Guai's face. The more he looked at it, the darker his face became. His big hand on the handle gripped it hard, and veins popped out on the back of his hand. Now that everyone was here, Guan Jinyu continued to ask, but this time the person was the mastermind Qin Zimu. "Second miss, may I ask why you kidnapped our wife?" Qin Zimu saw that a servant was questioning him, and glanced at him arrogantly, saying, "Why else? I don't like her." As soon as these words came out, Qin Junling and Mr. Qin both took a breath. This idiot. Still so arrogant in front of the Fu family. Do you think anyone will tolerate her? Even if they wanted to stop him, it was too late. This fool spoke very quickly and finished his words in one go. Qin Junling could only make up for her while wiping the cold sweat on his forehead. That's not it. Xiao Mu is a little confused now. She can't wake up if she says it. She just has a little misunderstanding with Miss Wei, and that's why she committed such a mistake. This excuse was too far-fetched. Not to mention the people present, even she herself didn't believe it. Guan Jinyu just smiled and continued to ask, "Second miss, what kind of punishment was used on our wife? How many people did it?" Qin Zimu was very unhappy to be questioned like this. This person was interrogating her like a prisoner. What did he mean? Have you taken her status as the second young lady of the Qin family seriously? What do you mean? Who are you? What qualifications do you have to ask me? Qin Zimu asked 3 times in a row, but did not answer the question. Qin Junling and Mr. Qin really want to kill this idiot right now? The two of them tried hard to calm her down, asking her to pay attention to the occasion and the way she spoke, so as not to offend anyone again. But Qin Zimu didn't know if he was really spoiled by his family or if he was just a little confused. What he said next was even more explosive. Brother-in-law, look at how this man is talking to me. Brother-in-law, if you want to ask me in person. I will definitely. She said this to Fu Xuanyi. The name of brother-in-law was also Fu Xuanyi. But before she finished speaking, Qin Junling covered her mouth, and the rest of her words turned into aha and she swallowed them. Qin Junling really didn't expect this idiot to be so stupid. To actually say such a thing. What brother-in-law? How could she have the courage to call Fu Xuanyi brother-in-law? Her sister is not so charming that she can take down Fu Xuanyi. Qin Junling was ashamed and broke out in cold sweat, because of this stupid sister. Suddenly, she was hesitant to save this stupid sister. If she was so stupid, even if she rescued her, she would be in trouble. Mr. Qin also looked very ugly. He glared at Qin Zimu fiercely and warned her with his eyes not to talk nonsense again, otherwise, no one can save her. Qin Zimu had never seen his grandfather look at him with such eyes, and he had never seen his sister disobey him and want to die. But when she saw the look in her grandfather's eyes, she didn't dare to do it again. She is still a little afraid of Grandpa. Mr. Qin has lived for so many years and has experienced hundreds of battles, and his aura cannot be underestimated. Qin Zimu, a young junior, is naturally scared after seeing him. Mr. Qin quickly said, "The child is still young and ignorant. He was barking randomly just now. Don't take it to heart, Mr. Fu. Mrs. Fu is Miss Wei. Everyone knows this." Qin Junling also followed, yes, Miss Wei is the real Mrs. Fu, there is no doubt about it." Even though they said this, the faces of the Fu family still did not improve, especially Fu Xuanyi, who looked at Qin Zimu as if he were looking at a dead person. He grabbed Wei Yuxian's hand beside him, kneaded it in his palm, and glanced at Guan Jinyu. Guan Jinyu understood what he meant, nodded, came to Qin Zimu and Qin Junling, smiled and said, "Mr. Qin, please go farther away." Seeing the smile on his face, Qin Junling felt a tingling sensation. He let go of Qin Zimu and took 2 steps to the side. Qin Zimu was about to say something, but before he could speak, he was slapped on the face by several big mouths. Crack! 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 After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 202. The loud slap echoed in the office. Before Qin Zimu had time to react, both sides of his face were completely red. By the time she came to her senses, Guan Jinyu had already finished beating the person, took a few steps back and said, "Second miss, watch your words. Mr. Xian didn't like what you just said." Qin Junling and Mr. Qin wanted to step forward to stop him, but when they saw Fu Xuanyi's cold eyes and the indifference in the eyes of the 2 elders of the Fu family, they did not dare to say anything. Qin Junling took a deep breath and said in her heart, "It's okay, let this damn girl learn a lesson and see if she dares to talk nonsense in the future. Only after eating and beating can we remember." Qin Zimu was completely confused. He looked at Guan Jinyu, who stepped aside in disbelief. The anger in his heart suddenly ignited. Just when he was about to curse, he saw Fu Xuanyi sitting over there. His eyes were extremely terrifying, the most terrifying eyes she had ever seen in her life. Inside, there is murderous intent. Undisguised murderous intent. Qin Zimu was scared, really scared, and didn't dare to say a word. He looked at Fu Xuanyi blankly for a few seconds, then his whole body shivered and he quickly looked away. She was afraid that if she continued to watch, she would really die. Fu Xuanyi wanted to kill her, he wanted to kill her unabashedly. At this time, she truly realized that this was not in the Qin family, but outside, and people outside would not always pamper her. She also began to feel scared, fearing that Fu Xuanyi would not care about his relationship with the Qin family and would kill her. Fu Xuanyi doesn't like his sister. He likes the little bitch Wei Yuxian. There is no possibility for his sister and Fu Xuanyi anymore. She covered her face that hurt from being slapped, and looked for help on Qin Junling and Mr. Qin. Her eyes were pitiful, as if to say, "Sister, Grandpa, help me." Seeing that she finally reacted, Qin Junling and Mr. Qin were relieved and thought, now this idiot doesn't dare to talk nonsense anymore. Guanjinyu repeated the question just now, what kind of punishment did the second lady use on our wife? How many people did it? Qin Zimu looked at his sister and grandfather and asked them with his eyes how to answer. Qin Junling, tell the truth. Qin Zimu nodded slightly, indicating that he understood, and said, I slapped her a few times, poured a few buckets of cold water on her, and it's gone. The 4 people who did it were me and Xiao. Guanjinyu, how many slaps are there in total? How many buckets of water are there in total? Is the water at room temperature, ice water, or hot water? He asked so carefully that Qin Zimu was confused by his question. How many slaps, how many buckets of water, I don't know, but the water is at room temperature. She was just thinking about the fight, how could she still remember it so clearly? Besides, why is she remembering all this? Who remembers how many times they hit someone when they hit them? Guanjinyu looked at her face and saw that what she said was not false, so he asked the next question, are the other 3 people who took action following? Qin Zimu nodded like a quail and said, outside. The 3 people also came together. Qin Junling's confidence brought them along. He knew Fu Xuanyi's temperament and would never let go of anyone who attacked Wei Yuxian, so he brought them along. Those 3 people, if you want to blame them, just blame them for their own misdeeds. Although Qin Zimu ordered them to do it, they didn't show any mercy when they beat people. And if they didn't want to get benefits from Qin Zimu, why would they follow Qin Zimu? Therefore, they are not innocent, not from beginning to end. Guanjinyu nodded, gave Qin Junling's confidant a look, and asked him to go outside and bring the people in. After receiving the order, the confidants quickly walked out and brought in the 3 people who were beating people outside. They were Xiao and 2 other girls. As soon as the 3 people came in and saw the situation inside, they couldn't help but tremble in their calves, they were so scared. They have been with Qin Zimu for so long and have learned a lot about the wealthy families in Kyoto. Among them, the Fu family's status is the most prominent and the most unsurpassed. But now, they have offended the Fu family. The 3 of them felt extremely regretful in their hearts, especially Xiao, who should not have been blinded by such a small profit in the first place. So what if you get money? So what if I get a house? She also has to have the life to spend it and enjoy it. Xiao Yu was the most alert. As soon as he came in, he knelt down and faced Fu Xuanyi and Wei Yuxian, saying, Master Xian. Madam. I was wrong. I can't see Taishan. I offended madam. I deserve to die. The other 2 people also reacted and knelt down, crying to Fu Xuanyi and Wei Yuxian that they were wrong and shouldn't do this. The 3 of them did not say that Qin Zimu instigated them to do this, nor did they put the blame on Qin Zimu. Because they know that the Qin family cannot afford to offend them. It is better to offend 1 family than to offend 2 families. Who knows what the Qin family will do for revenge after they leave Master Xian's place. For a moment, The office was filled with the sounds of three people crying and begging for mercy, which was very harsh. Wei Yuxian covered her ears and finally felt better. The confidant looked at these idiots, then looked at Master Xian's dark face, and quickly stepped forward and scolded, "Shut up. You don't even look at what the occasion is now, and you don't even look at Master Xian's face. Just crying here is so stupid." After being scolded like this, Xiao and the others immediately stopped crying and looked at Fu Xuanyi's face over there. When they saw the cold eyes that could freeze someone to death, their bodies trembled violently and they didn't dare to do anything wrong again. The office became quiet, and my heart became less agitated. Fu Xuanyi put down the hand covering Wei Yuxian's ears, grabbed one in his hand, and asked softly, "Are they them?" Wei Yuxian looked at it and saw that it was these three people. With Qin Zimu's words, there were four people. She nodded and said, "It's them." Fu Xuanyi said okay, took out his mobile phone and called Lu Changxiao. After a while, someone came in and took Xiao and the others away to who knows where. Everyone can vaguely guess what fate awaits them next. How many of the people taken away by Lu Changxiao came out intact? What's more, this time it's not only Wei Yuxian's matter, but also his Lu Changxiao matter. His Tian Tian was also kidnapped by these people, and he has not forgotten this. If these people are in his hands, don't even think about having a good life. Qin Zimu is the one who has not been dealt with as the attacker. She has a special status and it will take a long time to deal with the Qin family. After all the questions that need to be asked, the next step is to deal with Qin Zimu. Guan Jinyu looked at Fu Xuanyi and called, "Master Xian." This voice was asking him how to deal with Qin Zimu. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 203. Fu Xuanyi was playing with Wei Yuxian's little hand, as if he couldn't get enough. Guan Jinyu's words made everyone turn their attention to them. Naturally, he was also seen playing with Wei Yuxian's hand. Wei Yuxian still felt a little embarrassed in front of so many people, and since it was such a serious occasion, she wanted to withdraw her hand. She moved her hand and wanted to take it back without anyone noticing. But how could Fu Xuanyi allow it? He held her little hand tightly and refused to let go for a moment. Afraid of making more noise, Wei Yuxian had no choice but to stop thinking. Her little face felt hot. Fu Xuanyi saw that the little hand in his hand was at ease, and he also had thoughts to deal with the person. He simply said three words, "Her life." If he doesn't speak, he will scare the Qin family to death. Qin Zimu's calves were weak. He held his sister's arm and shook his head in panic. "Sister, save me." As she said this, tears were about to fall. She looked so pitiful, but except for Qin Junling and Mr. Qin, no one present felt pity for her. This was all her own fault. She couldn't blame others. If she hadn't done such a stupid thing, she wouldn't have had such a result. Qin Junling patted her hand and told her not to be so afraid. There was still room for negotiation. She said, "Actuan, Xiaomu just made some mistakes. The crime should not lead to death." Mr. Qin also said, "Yes, Xian, I watched you and Xiaomu grow up. Xiaomu is not a bad-hearted person, but she was taught bad by the people around her. Besides, Miss Wei is fine now. This matter it's actually not that serious." "Not that serious? If it wasn't serious, why would he be here? It's so ridiculous to say these things." Mother Fu stood up, walked slowly to Mr. Qin, and asked, "Do you think this matter is not serious?" She is about the same age as Mr. Qin, and in terms of seniority, she is one generation older than him. In addition, the Fu family has a prominent position, so Mr. Qin has to be lowered in front of her. Mr. Qin smiled and said, a little quarrel between children is nothing to worry about. Mrs. Fu is generous and won't argue with the children's family, right? This can be said to be quite shameless. Child. Qin Zimu is still a child? She is older than Wei Yuxian. This was the first time Wei Yuxian had seen such a big child. Fu's mother laughed sarcastically, so this is how your family educates their children. No wonder they are taught to behave like this. It would be fine if you hit someone else in the Fu family today. I wouldn't mind it. But you are hitting our family Yuxian, so I can't let you go easily. Don't tell me anything about the friendship between the two families. In front of Yuxian, our two families have no friendship. Father Fu silently walked behind her and supported her without saying a word, acquiescing that what she said was his own meaning. Mr. Qin couldn't hold back the smile on his face, and asked, what does Mrs. Fu think? What should we do to keep Xiao Mu? This. Mother Fu said, you shouldn't ask me, you have to ask Xian. Yuxian is Xian's daughter-in-law, and he has the final say on how to deal with these people. When they are older, it is better to worry less about these things and leave them to young people to solve them better. Mr. Qin then set his sights on Fu Xuanyi and asked, what do you think, Xian? Fu Xuanyi looked at Mr. Qin without fear, thought for a while, and then asked, want to protect someone? Mr. Qin said nonsense in his heart, why should I bother you so much, but he still maintained a smile on his face and nodded. Fu Xuanyi narrowed his eyes and said, 20% of Qin's shares are for her. As soon as the words came out, the smile on Mr. Qin's face froze, and Qin Junling's expression also changed again and again. Qin's 20% share. After giving it out, it doesn't matter whether the company will be called Qin's or not. The Qin family only holds 67% of the shares. It is absolutely impossible to give away 20% at once. Even in Qin Junling's hands, it was only 22%. How could she, Qin Zimu, have such a big face? She wants 20%. In an instant, Qin Junling no longer wanted to save his sister. This idiot has not seen her do any good things in these years, but she has done a lot of bad things. It's impossible to exchange 20% of the shares for her. Fu Xuanyi is also ruthless, asking for so much as soon as he opens his mouth, and he knows how to manipulate their lives. Mr. Qin is not willing to hand over 20% of the shares. If it is too much, it will cause chaos in the Qin family. But Xiaomu is the granddaughter he has doted on for so many years, and this is his favorite granddaughter. With the Qin family on one side and his granddaughter on the other, Mr. Qin couldn't make a choice. Seeing that his sister and grandfather were hesitating, Qin Zimu was so frightened that he couldn't hold back the tears any longer and burst out of his eyes. She changed someone to catch her, and went to grab her grandfather's hand. She cried and said, Grandpa, save me, Grandpa, you can't watch me die, Grandpa, I will be obedient from now on, and I will never play with Xiao and the others again now, I will study hard and do whatever you ask me to do. And sister, I really know my mistake. I won't dare to do it again. I will listen to you in the future. Sister, please help me, Wu. Why didn't Qin Junling want to save her? If she didn't want to save her, there was no need to come here in person. But Fu Xuanyi's conditions were too harsh. If it were less than 5% of the shares, she would consider it, but now, it is 20% of the shares. Almost all the shares she owns. How much effort did she put in to get into that position? From being ignored at the beginning to stepping on them step by step, no one knows the hardship and sadness during this period except herself. Between the shares and Qin Zimu, she would choose the shares without hesitation. It doesn't matter if she doesn't want this sister. There was no way she would give up all her years of hard work for this idiot. Xiaomu, don't blame your sister for being cruel. If you want to blame, I can only blame you for being stupid. Your sister has advised you not to touch Wei Yuxian, but you don't listen. If you insist on doing this, there is nothing you can do about it. She turned her head to the side, pretending to look at the scenery outside, and did not respond to Qin Zimu. Over here, Wei Yuxian looked at the farce over there with a complicated mood. The human heart is like this. When interests are involved, all family ties are thrown aside. But this was Qin Zimu's own fault. Before her, she was definitely not the only girl Qin Zimu tortured. There were countless other girls who suffered pain and despair at Qin Zimu's hands. This is the punishment she deserves. Fu Xuanyi just eradicated an evil person for this society. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 204. Grandpa, Grandpa, only you can save me now, please, I beg you, I don't want to die. Seeing that his sister's side had completely lost hope, Qin Zimu could only put all his hopes on his grandfather. Grandpa also has shares, and he owns 10% of the shares. If they bargain with Fu Xuanyi and beg for mercy, her life can be saved. At this moment, Qin Zimu didn't care about so much anymore. He cried imagelessly in front of everyone, just so that he could survive. When Mr. Qin cried like this, his heart softened when he saw her little tears falling as if they were free. He really couldn't bear to let this granddaughter die. After all, she was the granddaughter he had doted on for more than 20 years. He wiped Qin Zimu's tears and said, "Don't cry, Grandpa's darling. Grandpa will definitely save you, so don't cry." After receiving Grandpa's promise, Qin Zimu's tears fell even more fiercely. He choked and called Grandpa and threw himself into the old man's arms. The old man could only pat her back to comfort her and said, "Stop crying, hold on to your tears. Go home and ask your servants to make delicious food for you." Qin Zimu stopped crying with sobs and came out of his grandfather's arms and said, "Grandpa, I will definitely listen to you in the future, be a good boy, and never cause trouble for you again." Mr. Qin said happily, Okay, Xiaomu, it's great if you think so. You go to the side first, and Grandpa goes to talk to them." Okay. Qin Zimu was still sniffing and couldn't stop his tears. He walked to the side obediently and watched eagerly as his grandfather walked over. Mr. Qin walked up to Fu Xuanyi, sighed, and said, "Actuan, 20% of the shares is a bit too much. Let's see if you can get a little less." Fu Xuanyi raised his head slightly. Even when he was sitting, his aura was much stronger than that of Mr. Qin. "Master Xian's name is not for nothing," he said, "1 point, not a lot. The implication is that there is no room for discussion." But how could Mr. Qin give up so easily? He had already decided to save this granddaughter, even if he risked his life. "Actuan, considering the friendship between our two families, Xiaomu can be considered your sister, so just let her go. She also said that she will change her life in the future and never do such a thing again. How about giving all the 10% of the shares I have to you in exchange for Xiaomu's life? I can't take out too much, so just think it's Grandpa Qin begging you to give Xiaomu away to survive." He was a 70-year-old man, but he was humble in front of the 30-year-old Fu Xuanyi, and he could not show off the airs of an elder. But if you really think about it, Fu Xuanyi and Mr. Qin are of the same generation. Fu Xuanyi is young and senior. The ancestors of the Fu family only gave birth to a single child at a very old age. Fu Xuanyi glanced at Qin Junling over there and saw that she didn't look like she wanted to speak. He knew that 10% was all the Qin family could give. It was half as bad as he expected. If it were 20%, the Qin family would not have complete control over the Qin family, which would be considered a very high price. The status of the Qin family in Kyoto will be reduced. This woman is also cruel. She is her sister after all, but she just watched her die for the sake of those few shares. In fact, Qin Zimu's life is not important. What is important is that he wants the Qin family to pay the price. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether she dies or not. After this time, I think she will be a human being with her tail between her legs in the future. 10% of the shares, a little less, is better than nothing, and it is enough to cause the Qin family to bleed. The Qin family has offended the Fu family, and this news will soon spread throughout Kyoto. Anyone who wants to cooperate with the Qin family in the future must think carefully. Thinking about it this way, 10% of the shares is acceptable. Fu Xuanyi turned around, looked at the obedient person next to him, and asked, "What do you think, obedient?" Wei Yuxian didn't know what to do with Qin Zimua, nor did she know how much 10% of the shares were worth. She just said, "It's all up to you." As a layman, she had better not talk nonsense, as she could not delay Fu Xuanyi's plan. Fu Xuanyi squeezed her hand hard, leaned over, and whispered in her ear, "Then, husband, feel free to do whatever you want." When Wei Yuxian heard the word husband again, her ears felt hot again, and she nodded yes. She must be so well behaved and well behaved, just looking at her makes people want to bully her severely. A hint of danger flashed in Fu Xuanyi's eyes, and he looked away, fearing that he could not bear it. 10%, yes, plus a villa in the west of the city. The Qin family has a piece of land in the west of the city, and the entire hilltop belongs to them. With the development of urban construction over the years, the price of land there has also begun to increase. In the future, it will only become more and more valuable. If Fu Xuanyi wants this place, it will cause the Qin family to bleed. Mr. Qin gritted his teeth and agreed. After all this, the Qin family's vitality was greatly damaged. It will take 3 or 2 years to recover. But for his precious granddaughter, it was worth it. Qin Zimu's life can be considered saved, but the price is not as high as usual. Qin Junling listened to the whole process with a cold face, and when Fu Xuanyi relaxed, he also breathed a sigh of relief. Grandpa is really willing to go out of his way for this stupid girl. Mr. Qin called Qin Zimu over and said, "Xiao Mu, hurry up and say thank you to Xian." Qin Zimu looked at Fu Xuanyi's cold eyes and was so scared that he didn't dare to look at him at all. He lowered his head and whispered, "Thank you, Master Xian." She no longer dared to call her brother-in-law, nor did she dare to call him Xian. As for Fu Xuanyi's name, she was even more afraid to call him. After thinking about it, I followed the people outside and called Master Xian. Fu Xuanyi let go of Wei Yuxian's hand, looked at Qin Zimu, and said, "Come here." He asked Qin Zimu to get closer to him. Qin Zimu looked up at him, but was too scared to go forward. She didn't know what Fu Xuanyi wanted her to do. She went to see her grandfather for help. Mr. Qin pushed her gently and told her not to be afraid and come over. Qin Zimu could only bite the bullet and walk slowly over, not daring to look at Fu Xuanyi's face for fear of being frightened to death. No one present knew what Fu Xuanyi was going to do, not even Wei Yuxian. Everyone turned their attention to Fu Xuanyi, wanting to see what he was going to do. After moving a few steps, Qin Zimu arrived in front of Fu Xuanyi no matter how reluctant he was. The closer he got, the greater the pressure on her. There is an invisible aura on Fu Xuanyi's body. You can feel it when you get close, which is scary. "Master Xian." She called out softly, wanting to know why he asked her to come over. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 205. Fu Xuanyi's tone was not warm, and he asked, "Which hand beat my dear?" Qin Zimu was so overwhelmed by his aura that he couldn't breathe. He stretched out his right hand tremblingly and stuttered when he spoke, this one. Her right hand is very strong and she can hit easily. She fought with her right hand throughout the whole process. As soon as he stretched out his hand, Fu Xuanyi quickly pressed down on the table, took out a Swiss multifunctional army knife from his pocket, and slashed hard. The sharp blade cut across the flesh, and the next second, Qin Zimu's palm was separated from his body. Fu Xuanyi inserted the knife into it again and nailed it to the table. Ah! Qin Zimu's voice shouting in pain instantly came from the office. Others were also frightened by Fu Xuanyi's sudden action, but soon most of them came to their senses. Fu's mother saw that Wei Yuxian's little face turned pale. She cursed Fu Xuanyi a few times in her mind, went forward, covered her eyes with her hands, and said, "Don't look at Yuxian, your dirty eyes." This brat didn't even try to avoid Yuxian, but what should I do if he scared Yuxian? Wei Yuxian actually felt okay. She was really scared just now, but it was only for a moment. Now, she feels much better and can accept it. She is no longer the little girl who is afraid of everything. Fu Xuanyi does this all for himself. She will not think that Fu Xuanyi is cruel. What if the person who had an accident today was me? Will she still have the heart to pity others? No. What Fu Xuanyi did was correct. He was intimidating the Qin family. After Fu Xuanyi finished doing this, he picked up the wet towel on the table, took it out to wipe his hands, and coldly spat out 2 words towards Qin Zimu: "Remember. Remember the pain at this moment, remember the cry at this moment, remember, you can't afford to offend the Fu family. Anyone who offends the Fu family will be punished severely. It's just one hand, so this punishment is pretty light." Qin Zimu grabbed his forearm. The incisions on it were so neat. Fu Xuanyi controlled it very well and did not cut any big bones. Otherwise, it would not be able to be cut off so easily. Blood continued to gush out from the wound and flow down the arm, but most of it dripped onto the table and floor. Ah dash. She kept crying and yelling, tears and runny nose came out, and the pain invaded her brain. My hand, my hand. She wanted to pick up her right hand, but Fu Xuanyi nailed it tightly to the table with a knife. She couldn't move even if she wanted to. Mr. Qin reacted after being stunned for a while. He strode forward to hug Qin Zimu, who was about to fall, and asked loudly, "What are you doing? Didn't you agree? Why did you attack Xiao Mu?" Mr. Qin was very angry at the moment. His anger rushed to his brain and he spoke in a loud voice. He didn't care that the person opposite was Fu Xuanyi and he focused on questioning the hands of his good grandson. A whole hand. While he was anxious, he took off his clothes, covered Qin Zimu's wound, and tried to stop her bleeding. Fu Xuanyi's expression did not change, and he said calmly, "I can't let my family be beaten in vain, do you think so?" His tone was so cold it could kill someone. Mr. Qin met his gaze, his eyes were full of indifference, without any emotion at all. In an instant, his mind came to his senses, he swallowed his silence and said, "Our Qin family has learned the lesson this time. Don't worry, Mr. Fu, our Qin family will never do it again in the future." He, a 70-year-old man, could not stand up against Fu Xuanyi. It does not mean whoever is older will have any say. Even Mr. Qin has to stay humble in front of Fu Xuanyi. Relying on one's elders, betraying one's elders, and suppressing one's elders, all these are of no use in front of Fu Xuanyi. The Fu family is an existence they cannot surpass. "Grandpa Weevu, Grandpa help me, Grandpa, am I going to die? Weevu." Qin Zimu relied on Mr. Qin to prevent him from falling, as if he was grasping the only life-saving straw. "It's okay, Xiao Mu, you won't die. With Grandpa here, nothing will happen to you." Qin Zimu still cried miserably. The severe pain made her brain ache, and she felt like she would not be able to survive at any time. Mr. Qin didn't want to waste too much time. He wanted to send his granddaughter to the hospital quickly, and maybe he could get her hand on her. He reached out to the table and wanted to put his right hand on it, but before his hand could reach the saber, another hand that was faster than his pressed it on the saber. He looked over and saw that it was Fu Xuanyi. "Don't move," he kept this thing. Mr. Qin understood what he meant and wanted to ask for it, but he also knew that it was impossible to come back, so he didn't waste any more time and walked out of the office anxiously with Qin Zimu in his arms. As soon as he left, Qin Junling and others had no need to stay here anymore, so they quickly followed him and left the office. At this moment, the treatment of Qin Zimu is truly over. Fu Xuanyi was very satisfied with this result, and so were his father and mother. If you dare to bully their family Yuxian, you will have to pay such a heavy price. Let other people know that their language is so beautiful that it is like a precious golden bump that cannot be moved. Everyone left in a huff, and there were only 4 members of the Fu family left in the office, plus Guan Jinyue. Wei Yuxian gently pushed Fu's mother's hand and said, "Mom, I'm not afraid." Fu's mother kept her hands on her eyes, preventing her from seeing the bloody scene. Wei Yuxian's heart felt extremely warm, and her voice became much softer when she spoke to Fu's mother. Fu's mother still didn't remove her hand and said, "Yuxian is good, these things are dirty to the eyes, we don't want to look at them." She didn't want their baby Yuxian to see these things, and their baby Yuxian had to be protected well. Wei Yuxian said, "Then I close my eyes. Mom's hands will be tired." Fu's mother said okay, moved her hand away, and couldn't help but touch Wei Yuxian's head. She ordered Fu Xuanyi, "Take Yuxian home first. Assistant Guan, clean up the office and replace the tables and carpets." Guan Jinyu nodded and said, "Okay, old lady." Then, how to deal with this? He pointed at the thing on the table and couldn't make up his mind for a moment. Fu's mother, "Just watch and come." "Okay, old lady." Fu's mother said to Wei Yuxian, who had her eyes closed again, "Yuxian, keep your eyes closed for now. Let's go home and open your eyes again after we leave the office." Wei Yuxian nodded obediently, stretched out her hand and called, "Action." Fu Xuanyi took her hand and led her to stand up, avoiding those disgusting things, and walked outside. Wei Yuxian trusted him very much and gave him her whole heart and let him lead her away. Fu's father and Fu's mother followed them and walked out of the office. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 206. Fu Xuanyi looked at the cute faces of the people around him. He closed his eyes when he was asked to close his eyes and held hands when he was asked to hold hands. He really wanted to do it right here. "Okay, you can open your eyes now," Fu Xuanyi said as he walked outside the office. Wei Yuxian could finally open her eyes and see the wonderful world again. She couldn't wait to open them, her eyes were bright and beautiful. She exhaled and looked at Fu Xuanyi for the first time, smiling at him. Fu Xuanyi asked her as he walked, "Were you scared just now? Are you scared?" Wei Yuxian shook her head and said, "Your action was too sudden. I was indeed frightened, but I'm not afraid. I know you did it for me. Qin Zimu also deserved it." Fu Xuanyi curled his lips and praised her, "You are so brave." Sitting in the car, Fu Xuanyi drove, Wei Yuxian and the 2 elders sat in the back. Fu's mother pulled Wei Yuxian and asked, "Were you scared when you were kidnapped?" Wei Yuxian shook her head and said, "Don't be afraid. I first asked her which family she was from. After knowing her details, I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew Axian would come to save me and he would definitely be able to find me." As she spoke, she turned her attention to the man driving in front of her, with love in her eyes. Fu's mother looked at her with a look of relief and said, "Our family, Yuxian, has really grown up and become brave. We really don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be afraid of anything we encounter in the future, you know. Axian will find you, and your parents will find you, and nothing will happen to you." Yes, Wei Yuxian nodded solemnly, indicating that she understood. Fu's mother held her hand and said, "It seems it's time to announce to the outside world that you and Xian received the certificates, otherwise there will always be some wishful thinking people who want to break you up." Wei Yuxian said, "I listened to my mother. Okay, then it's better to choose a day than to hit the day. Let's do it today. Lao Fu, please contact someone to take care of this matter." Father Fu nodded and said, "I understand." After returning home, the family doctor had been waiting at home early. As soon as they returned, he immediately looked at Wei Yuxian's face. Wei Yuxian obediently cooperated with the doctor's examination, raising her head when asked and turning her face away when asked. The doctor quickly completed the examination, and the result was naturally no major problem, just like the previous doctor's examination. The main thing is to use ice cubes to reduce the swelling and apply some ointment, and it will be cured within 2 days. After the doctor checked, he left the ointment and left. Wei Yuxian yawned and felt sleepy, but she was hungry, so she had to eat first and then go back to her room to sleep. It was lunchtime when she was kidnapped. She was kidnapped without even eating, and she didn't even take a nap. Fu Xuanyi slept with her, held her in his arms, kissed her forehead, and said, "Go to sleep, dear." Wei Yuxian let out a sleepy hum, her consciousness already a little unclear. After a while, she fell into sleep, huddled in Fu Xuanyi's arms, smelled his scent, and felt extremely at ease. Fu Xuanyi also fell asleep after a while. After sleeping until dinner time, Fu Xuanyi woke up first, looked down at the person in his arms, and kissed her on the forehead. During this kiss, I noticed something was wrong, the temperature was a bit hot. He reached out and touched Wei Yuxian's forehead. A steady stream of heat invaded his big hand and lingered for a long time. "You were fine in the afternoon, why do you have a fever now?" Fu Xuanyi didn't hesitate at all. He took the phone and called the family doctor and asked someone to come over quickly. The family doctor lives in the Fu mansion, but not in this villa, but in the house where the servants live. Within a few minutes, the family doctor rushed over, knocked on the door, and entered after getting permission. Fu Xuanyi had already gotten up, dressed and tidied himself up. Wei Yuxian was still asleep on the bed, her face red. The family doctor came in and began to examine Wei Yuxian's body. After a while, the second elder also came in, looking at the person on the bed with a worried look. Fu's mother asked, "How is it? What's wrong with Yuxian?" Fu Xuanyi said, "Fever. Isn't it fine this afternoon? Why do you have a fever now?" Fu Xuanyi shook his head, he didn't know either. Maybe it was those buckets of cold water, even at room temperature, which was unbearable. His obedient body was weak and he most likely got sick from those buckets of cold water. It seemed that Qin Zimu's punishment was too light. Fu Xuanyi didn't look very good. He sat on the edge of the bed and held Wei Yuxian's hand. The doctor took Wei Yuxian's temperature. It was 39 degrees, a high fever. "Master Xian, we need to give Madam an intravenous drip quickly, and we also need to physically cool her down." Fu Xuanyi said and stood up to ask someone to prepare ice cubes. The doctor was responsible for giving Wei Yuxian 3 vials of hanging needles. After working for a while, the drip was hooked up and the ice pack was applied. The doctor and the elders left the room, leaving Fu Xuanyi alone in the room guarding Wei Yuxian. The sick Wei Yuxian was like a fragile porcelain doll. The more Fu Xuanyi looked at her, the more distressed she became. "I just hope that he will be obedient and get well soon." He held Wei Yuxian's hand that was not on the floor with both hands, put it on his lips and kissed it a few times. After staring at the person quietly for a while, he took off the beads from his wrist and put them on Wei Yuxian's hand. Let Buddha protect his darling and wake up early. After hanging up a bottle of intravenous drip, Fu Xuanyi changed a bottle for her. At this time, Fu's mother gently opened the door and came in, pushing a dining cart. He came to Fu Xuanyi's side and said, Eat your food first, don't get too exhausted. Fu Xuanyi shook his head and expressed that he had no appetite. Fu's mother sighed and said, you have to eat even if you don't have an appetite. If you want to take care of Yuxian, you have to take good care of your body. Hearing this, Fu Xuanyi was silent for a while and started eating in silence. Fu's mother sat down by the bed, reached out to touch Wei Yuxian's face, and said with pity, I'm sorry, why is our family Yuxian so troubled? Even if you don't even think about having a peaceful life, there are always some clowns looking for death. There are always unknown dangers outside, but they have to let Yuxian go to school, and they will not restrict Yuxian's freedom. Yuxian likes to go to school and learn knowledge, and they will not stop her. They will also cultivate Yuxian's hobbies. Fu's mother sighed again and again, caring for Wei Yuxian as if she were her own daughter. After Fu Xuanyi finished eating, Fu's mother left the room without disturbing the young couple. It is estimated that Xian does not want anyone else to be in the room at this moment. Fu Xuanyi continued to hold Wei Yuxian's hand, put it next to his cheek, and stared at her face. I don't know how much time passed, but the person on the bed finally slowly woke up. At this moment, the third bottle of intravenous drip had been hooked up. Wei Yuxian's head was in a daze, she was dizzy, she still had a little pain, and her body felt very wrong. After thinking for a while, she realized that she had a fever. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Juyi. Chapter 207. Turning around to look at the person next to him, he called out in a hoarse voice, Actuan. Fu Xuanyi's eyes focused and his throat tightened, wake up. He helped her sit up, poured water for her, fed her to drink, and moistened her throat. Wei Yuxian drank some water, and her dry throat felt much better. She leaned weakly on the bed and asked, how long have I been sleeping? What time is it now? Fu Xuanyi told her the time, it's past 8 o'clock. You slept for 5 hours. Wei Yuxian still felt very tired. Even after sleeping for so long, she still felt very tired. Maybe it was because she was sick. She always felt tired and couldn't get enough sleep no matter how hard she slept. I'm hungry, she said. Fu Xuanyi called Aunt Fu and asked someone to bring dinner in. After a while, Aunt Fu came in with a dining cart. After coming in, she first set up small tables on the bed, then served the porridge and said, Madam, please have dinner quickly. Wei Yuxian nodded towards her and said, Thank you, Aunt Fu. You're welcome, madam. Please use it slowly. I'll come over and take care of it later. Aunt Fu didn't stay long, put her things away and left. Wei Yuxian was eating porridge and asked Fu Xuanyi, how is Lu Changxiao doing? Has he found Tian Tian? She didn't forget that Lu Changxiao's girlfriend was also kidnapped. Lu Changxiao was so negligent because he wanted to save his girlfriend. Found it, Fu Xuanyi replied to her. Wei Yuxian breathed a sigh of relief and said, it's good that we found them. The purpose of those people was obviously me. They kidnapped Tian Tian just to lure Lu Changxiao away. Xian, you won't blame Lu Changxiao, right? Fu Xuanyi said nothing and looked at her. Even if there was a reason, this time it was because of Lu Changxiao's mistake that Guoguai was taken away. As soon as Wei Yuxian saw his look, she knew what he was thinking. She put the porridge down and said, Actuan, don't blame Lu Changxiao. He is right. If it weren't for me, Tian Tian wouldn't have been taken away. To be honest, or I owe Tian Tian. Tian Tian is Lu Changxiao's girlfriend, he has to save her, so don't blame Lu Changxiao, okay? After a while, Fu Xuanyi nodded and said, I'll listen to you. Since I told you not to blame him, then don't blame him. Wei Yuxian had a sweet smile on her face, picked up the bowl and continued to drink porridge. The porridge is soft and delicious. Fu's mother specially ordered it to be cooked in the kitchen. It is delicious and nutritious. After finishing the porridge, Wei Yuxian's drip was almost finished. When the drip was finished, Fu Xuanyi pulled out the needle to stop the bleeding, went into the bathroom to take a shower, and came out to sleep again. The next day, Wei Yuxian's fever subsided and the swelling on her face completely subsided. However, Fu Xuanyi was still worried and asked her to continue applying some ointment and take it with 2 meals to avoid recurrence of the fever. Wei Yuxian obediently did as she was told, had breakfast and went to school. Due to her illness, she didn't dare to express milk for her 2 babies. Fortunately, she still had spare milk in the refrigerator, so she didn't have to worry about the baby's food rations. Today, Wei Yuxian discovered that Lu Changxiao did not come to school, and only Lu Chang and 3 others were with her. What she didn't know was that in the darkness of the school, around her, there were some bodyguards in disguise, protecting her secretly. Sitting down in the classroom, she took out her book and asked Ali, "Where is your second master?" Ali looked at his wife's little white rabbit look and did not dare to tell what Lu Changxiao was doing for fear of scaring his timid wife. She said, "Second master is busy these days and won't come to school. He'll come back next week." Wei Yuxian didn't ask what it was about, but just nodded to show that she understood. And what is Lu Changxiao doing at this moment? Of course it was to avenge his little girlfriend and Wei Yuxian. In a training base in the suburbs, Lu Changxiao stayed up all night and went to teach people a lesson. The people who were being taught a lesson were none other than the 3 Xiao people who were taken away yesterday. Among them, Xiao's injury was the most serious. There was no other reason, because these ideas were all hers. Lu Changxiao is not a merciful person. When he taught Ding Nana and others, he was trying to get them to die, and it is the same now. He yawned and felt tired. He looked at the 3 people opposite and said, "You were so impressive when you were playing tricks on me yesterday. How come it's like this now? You dare to kidnap my girlfriend and wife, who gave you the courage? You think you have a long life, don't you?" Xiao and the other 3 were hanging, dying, extremely tired, and the wounds on their bodies were in great pain. They were all wet, and countless buckets of cold water had been poured on them. Lu Changxiao said he was throwing it back for his wife. At what time Xiao was tired and wanted to sleep, all night long, all night long. No one knows what kind of inhuman torture they went through. She said vaguely, "Wrong, wrong, I was wrong, I never, dare." Last night, they also fainted, but before they fainted for a while, a bucket of cold water was poured on their heads, waking them up. Xiao really regretted it, very, very much. She regretted why she followed Qin Zimu for money, and also regretted why she used her cleverness in these places. If she hadn't done it for that little bit of money or that little bit of vanity, and just been an ordinary person, she wouldn't have ended up like this. She wanted to die, really wanted to die. She didn't want to be beaten anymore, she just wanted to be free. But now, she doesn't even have a chance to escape. Lu Changxiao sneered and said, "You know you were wrong now. Why did you go there earlier? You didn't ask me for my name. Is Master Lu someone you can afford to offend? Is Master Xian someone you can afford to offend? Next time, when you see our wife, take a detour. Go with your tail between your legs. Don't come in front of my wife when you have nothing to do you know?" Xiao Yu nodded weakly, tears kept flowing from her eyes, and said in a voice as small as a mosquito, "Second master, let me go, I really, know I was wrong, let me go, let me go. It's only been a day, why are you anxious?" "I haven't had enough fun yet." After saying that, he yawned again, "I'm tired, I'm going to take a nap first. You guys should also seize the time to take a nap. This is a rare opportunity, don't miss it." Xiao and the others stayed in Lu Changxiao's hands for 3 days. When they were sent out of the training base, there was no good spot in their bodies. They thought they had finally made it through, but they didn't expect that the Qin family would greet them after they went out. Mr. Qin personally came to take people back to the Qin family's old house, and these people must pay the price. If it weren't for them, how could their Xiaomu make such a big mistake? How could it become like this? Xiao and the others are really unjust. Qin Zimu has become like this, and they can't stop him even if they want to. Unfortunately, no one in the Qin family would listen to their excuses. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 208. The weather is getting colder, the leaves are falling from the trees, the grass is yellowing, the flowers are falling, winter is coming. After New Year's Day, the new year comes again. It was night in Qin's house, Qin Junling's villa, and she was sitting alone at the small bar at home, wearing pajamas and holding a glass of freshly sobered red wine in her hand. Swirling the scarlet liquid in the wine glass, she looked outside the floor-to-ceiling window, lost in thought. Several months had passed since the last incident. Qin Zimu's life was saved, but he was missing a hand, which could never be replaced. These days, the Qin family's business has not been easy. Everyone knows that the Qin family has offended the Fu family, and a lot of business that was about to be concluded has been lost. She was under increasing pressure. Sitting in that position, she had to guard against those white-eyed wolves in her family every day, and she had to work hard to discuss cooperation. She leaned on the sofa tiredly and took a sip of red wine. She was so drunk that she couldn't help but think about it more. She thought of Fu Xuanyi, Wei Yuxian, and the scene that day. At that time, Fu Xuanyi's eyes were so cold when he looked at her, as if he were looking at a stranger. Over the years, she has always liked this man because he is excellent, handsome, and charming. I'm afraid there are few people who have met him who don't like him. His face can make people's hearts flutter at a glance. When she was young, she first met him in elementary school. At that time, she was still young, and she just thought that he was extraordinarily different and that his body would shine. From then on, I had a crush on him. Slowly, as I grew up, I fell in love with him more and more. But recently she thought about it, and it seemed that in the past 2 years, she no longer liked Fu Xuanyi, it was just an obsession. Because I have liked it for so many years but have not gotten it, so I have always wanted to get it. Now that Fu Xuanyi and Wei Yuxian are married, her obsession seems to have ended. Seeing Fu Xuanyi and Wei Yuxian together, her heart was not disturbed, as if she had known it would end like this. She and Fu Xuanyi were destined not to get together. After letting go of her feelings for Fu Xuanyi, she suddenly felt a lot more relaxed all over. Letting go of him doesn't seem to be as difficult as imagined. If you don't like him, you just don't like him. You can't force it. However, whenever she thought of Fu Xuanyi's eyes that day, his cold eyes when he looked at her, she felt uncomfortable in her heart. After all, they have been good friends for many years. They have been studying in the same school since childhood, and took over the family company after graduation. The two have also cooperated a lot. But how could he be so heartless? He doesn't care about their friendship over the years, nor does he care about the Qin family's face. He doesn't even give face to his grandfather. Fu Xuanyi, you are so cruel. Your coldness and ruthlessness are really your most powerful weapons. Did something serious happen to Wei Yuxian? It was just a few slaps, but the Qin family had to pay such a high price. 10% of the shares, a villa in the west of the city, and Xiao Mu's hand. It was just a small thing, but you have to make it known to everyone. The Qin family is going downhill these days, are you smiling happily? Is it safe to hold 10% of the Qin family's shares? If nothing else happens, the 10% of the shares will be handed over to her after her grandfather dies, but now, there is nothing. Is Wei Yuxian's face so valuable? As she thought about it, she thought of Qin Zimu crying into tears in the hospital. After all, Xiao Mu is also her sister, the sister she has doted on for so many years. Seeing her sister feel so uncomfortable makes her feel bad. Although she knew that her sister was responsible for all this, she still felt that Fu Xuanyi should not do it. Isn't 10% of the shares and the villa in the west of the city enough? Why should I take away Xiaomu's hand? Let Xiaomu only become a disabled person in this life. After finishing the red wine in the glass, she poured another glass. As she drank one glass after another, her cheeks became redder and redder. She had severe insomnia these days, and she couldn't sleep at all if she didn't drink alcohol every night. Her mind was always thinking about things, the company's affairs, Xiaomu's treatment in the hospital, and Fu Xuanyi and Wei Yuxian's carefree life. Only after drinking wine, her mind became dull and she would not think so much. The bottle of red wine quickly ran out, so she opened another bottle and continued to drink until she couldn't think, drank until she lost consciousness, and fell asleep on the sofa. It's cold, but fortunately the heating at home is turned on enough, so even wearing short sleeves will make you feel hot. You can sleep on the couch all night without getting sick. She didn't know how long she slept. When she woke up, the sky was bright and she was covered with a blanket, which the servant had covered her with at night. She rubbed her tingling temples and opened her eyes. She sat up slowly and glanced at the table. She didn't know when the servant had cleared it away. Seeing her getting up, a servant hurriedly came forward with sobering tea and said, "Mr. Qin, you are awake. Let's drink a cup of sobering tea. It will relieve your headache." Qin Junling had a headache. He drank too much last night. He took the cup handed by the servant and drank the sobering tea with a frown. After drinking, she asked in a hoarse voice, "What time is it?" "Mr. Qin, it's 10 o'clock in the morning." Qin Junling rubbed his temples for a moment, remembering that he had to pick up his sister from the hospital today. She stood up, her body was a little weak, and she almost fell down. Fortunately, the servant beside her had quick eyesight and hands to hold her, so she didn't fall down. "Mr. Qin, are you okay?" Qin Junling stood firm and walked 2 steps away. "It's okay. Get ready to pick up Xiaomu from the hospital." The servant said okay and followed her to the room. She was afraid that something would happen to Qin Junling again. Qin Junling went into the room to wash up. Afterwards, he felt a lot more awake and energetic. He applied some moisturizer on his face, picked out some nice clothes, and went downstairs to have breakfast. After breakfast, she got in the car and set off to the hospital. Qin Zimu stayed in the hospital for several months, and the doctor installed a myoelectric prosthetic hand on her to make her look better. She stayed in the hospital for such a long time, mainly to rest, because what happened that day scared her, and her nerves were always tense when she was first hospitalized. Now that she has been recuperating for so long, her condition is much better and she has basically returned to normal. However, one right hand is missing. Qin Junling closed her eyes and slept in the car. Although she fell asleep last night, she didn't sleep well. She had several nightmares. Either Qin's company went bankrupt or her seat was taken away. When she arrived at the hospital, the driver woke her up softly. She opened her eyes still filled with fatigue, and her hoarse voice had not recovered. "Are you there?" "Yes, Mr. Qin." "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 209. Qin Junling said and said, "Let's go." The driver got out of the car, opened the door for her, asked people to get out of the car, and followed her to the hospital. Qin Junling put his hands in his pockets and followed his memory to Qin Zimu's ward. He opened the door and went in. Mr. Qin and his parents were inside. The servants were packing Qin Zimu's things. The discharge procedures had been completed and they were waiting for Qin Junling to arrive. As soon as she entered the door, Qin Zimu saw her, trotted into her arms, and shouted, "Sister, you are here, I have been waiting for you for a long time." Qin Junling touched Qin Zimu's head and said, "I got up late today, sorry." Qin Zimu smelled a hint of alcohol on her body and asked, "Did sister drink again last night?" "Drink some." "Sister, please don't drink next time. Drinking is bad for your health." "I don't want my sister to get sick." Qin Zimu raised his head in her arms. Qin Junling promised her, "Okay, I won't drink it next time." But it was just a promise. She would still drink whatever it was time to drink next time. The pressure is so great, you can't keep suppressing it, you have to release it. Qin Zimu came out of her arms, looked at her eagerly, and said, "I want to live with my sister." Qin Junling was stunned for a moment and asked, "Why do you suddenly have this idea?" Qin Zimu hugged her arm and said, "I just want to live with my sister. Will my sister let me move there?" Qin Junling looked at his parents and grandfather, especially his grandfather, and asked with his eyes, "Are you willing?" Qin Zimu has always lived with them. The elders in the family doted on her and were reluctant to let her live outside for fear that she would suffer hardship. Now, Qin Junling was quite surprised that his sister actually said that she wanted to live with him. Mr. Qin said, "Xiaomu wants to live with you, but we can't help it. Isn't it convenient for you, Xiaoling?" Qin Zimu shook his sister's arm and looked at her with pitiful eyes, as if saying silently, "Sister, please let me live in." Qin Junling relented and said, "There is nothing inconvenient. Xiaomu wants to go, so go ahead. I'm just afraid that you won't be able to let him go." Mr. Qin, "Okay, I will ask Xiaomu to go directly to your place later, and I will have her things packed up and sent over. Xiaomu, be more sensible when you go to your sister's house, and don't bother your sister with everything. Your sister is busy at work, please be considerate of her." Qin Zimu nodded obediently and said, "I know, Grandpa, I will definitely not do it. I will listen to my sister obediently." She was in a great mood because she could move in with her sister. The main reason why she wanted to move in with her sister was to make it up to her sister. In the past, she had done too many wrong things, and her sister always wiped her butt. Now, she has to learn to help her sister share the blame. "My sister is alone in the company, isolated and helpless, which is too hard. Mom and dad are just two children, so they have to help each other." She wanted to help her sister, to make her life less tiring, and to let her sleep well in peace of mind. Although she doesn't understand anything yet, she can learn it, and she will definitely become excellent in the future. In this way, Qin Zimu moved into Qin Junling's villa and lived in the second bedroom next to Qin Junling. The room was large and she liked it very much. On the first day after moving in, Qin Zimu thought it was very meaningful and even asked someone to buy a cake and eat it with Qin Junling in the evening. At the dinner table, Qin Junling watched his sister eating awkwardly with her left hand, feeling complicated. Qin Zimu lost his right hand and was fitted with a myoelectric prosthetic hand. His control of this hand was not very good and he had to undergo special training every day. As for her left hand, she was not used to it even after using it for several months. She ate with a spoon when eating. Qin Zimu noticed his sister's eyes and comforted her, "It's okay, sister, when I learn to use my right hand, I won't be like this again." This incident also made her change a lot, as if she had grown up overnight. This is both a good and a bad thing. She was supposed to be the little princess of the Qin family, and she could live a wonderful life without worries, but who could have imagined that something unexpected would happen when she was 21 years old? Qin Junling sighed in his heart and asked, "Xiaomu, do you still want to go to school?" Xiaomu is only in her second year of college, and she still has several years to study. Her grades are not good, but she can barely pass. There is no problem in getting a diploma. But Wei Yuxian was also in that school, so Xiaomu was afraid that she would feel uncomfortable. Qin Zimu lowered her head and thought for a while. The smile on her face disappeared, but when she raised her head, the smile appeared on her face again. There's no point in going to school without me. Sister, please give me a tutor. I want to learn more quickly so I can help my sister in the company. Qin Junling knew that she had no malicious intentions. She did not go to the company to fight for power with him, but simply wanted to help him. Xiaomu has really changed a lot. When Xiaomu lowered her head just now, she could faintly see that her face was expressionless, but when she raised her head, there was a smile on her face. Sighing again in her heart, she said, Xiaomu, you don't have to force yourself. The company sister can do it alone. You just need to be your little princess with peace of mind. As soon as the words came out, Qin Zimu's nose felt sour, and he was even more determined to help his sister. She held back her tears and said, Sister, I also want you to be a little princess. I can't be a little princess by myself. Qin Junling gave her a piece of meat and asked, Have you really thought about it clearly? Qin Zimu nodded, I have really thought it through, sister. I will not regret it. No matter how much suffering I suffer, I will not retreat. Her face was firm and her tone was so firm. Okay, I'll make arrangements for tutoring. Once you learn it, I'll take you into the company. Qin Zimu immediately had a sweet smile on his face and said, Thank you sister, I will definitely live up to your expectations. From that day on, Qin Junling saw a completely different sister. Qin Zimu really does what she says, and studies hard every day. From morning to night, excluding mealtime, she studies for 10 hours a day. Not only does she learn how to manage the company, she also does myoelectric prosthetic hand training every day, hoping to quickly master the prosthetic hand. Qin Junling saw her efforts and was very pleased, but every time he saw it, he couldn't help but sigh. There was an idea that had been lingering in her mind, it would be great if Xiaomu's right hand was still there. The Qin family is getting worse and worse. On the other hand, the Fu family is prospering and getting stronger and stronger these days. Qin Junling felt unhappy when he saw Fu Xuanyi and Wei Yuxian living so well. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 210. It's February, and the Chinese New Year is coming soon. Wei Yuxian's school has already been on holiday, and Fu Xuanyi has also started to take annual leave. The two babies, Shishi and Zizi, are 7 months old. While drinking breast milk, they also drink formula milk and some complementary foods. The two little guys have now learned to roll over and sit up. They are also learning to crawl recently and spend a lot more time awake. Wei Yuxian watched her two babies grow up day by day, knowing more and more things, and her heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. When she plays with the babies, she will also teach them to call them mom and dad. These two pronunciations are the simplest and easiest for babies to learn. It's just that after teaching for so long, the two babies still haven't called mom or dad. Wei Yuxian asked an experienced nanny. The nanny said that this is normal. Babies don't call mom or dad until they are 7 or 8 months old, and they do so unconsciously. Wei Yuxian felt relieved now and continued to talk tirelessly in the ears of the two little guys every day. People say that you should talk to your babies more. Even if your babies don't understand, you should still talk to your babies more. On the first day of vacation, Fu Xuanyi had a rare sleep. When Wei Yuxian got up, he was still asleep. In order not to disturb the man's sleep, she entered the bathroom quietly. The man stayed up late last night for a cross-country meeting and went to bed very late. He finally finished all the company matters for the time being and can take annual leave with peace of mind. She felt sorry for him staying up late and had no intention of waking him up, letting him sleep until he woke up naturally. After washing, She quietly walked out of the room and closed the door to isolate the movement outside. When she walked downstairs, she happened to meet the two elders who were going downstairs to have breakfast together. She smiled and called, "Dad, Mom." The two elders responded, and Fu's mother asked, "Where's Xian? He hasn't gotten up yet." "What happened?" "Yuxian got up." "This brat didn't get up. How could he be in poor health at such a young age?" Wei Yuxian didn't know what Fu's mother was thinking, and said, "Axuan did his work too late last night. I didn't wake him up." Fu's mother said "Oh," nodded, and took back her previous thoughts. His son is still good, and he can give her a litter of grandsons and granddaughters. "Let's go have breakfast first." Without waiting for him, Fu's mother took Wei Yuxian's hand and led them downstairs without even holding her husband's arm. Father Fu followed the two of them, sighing helplessly and shaking his head. As he gets older, he is increasingly disliked by his wife, who actually doesn't even hold his arm. While having breakfast with her second elder, Wei Yuxian was very quiet and concentrated on eating her breakfast. Fu's mother asked, "Yuxian, aren't Shishi and Zizi 7 months old now?" Wei Yuxian nodded and said, "Yes, it's been 7 months. In a little while, I'll be able to walk and talk." Mother Fu said with emotion, "Yes." In the blink of an eye our family knew that the baby was so big. Wei Yuxian looked at her strangely, wondering why she was talking about this. Fu's mother took a sip of porridge, pondered for a while, and then revealed her true purpose. "Yuxian, you see Shishi and Zizi are so old, when are you going to give them a younger brother or younger sister?" Wei Yuxian. It turns out that her mother's thoughts are waiting for her here. After giving birth, she took good care of her body and recovered her figure very well. It can be said that there is basically no problem. But if we want to have a second child now, wouldn't it be too early? Shishi and Zizi are not even 1 year old. My mother was really anxious too. Wei Yuxian said, "I think Shishi and Zizi are still young. I'm also in school now and don't have much time." "Mom, didn't I tell you last time? While I'm studying, I won't have any more children." "Mother Fu, really? Have you said this? When did you say it?" Wei Yuxian understood that the old man would forget things easily as he got older, and said, "As I said last year, please don't urge me to have a second child." Fu's mother recalled it carefully and found that such a thing seemed to exist. "It's not like you don't know that it's difficult for our Fu family to have an heir. You and Xian are preparing now. You may not know which year you will be able to conceive." Wei Yuxian didn't believe the nonsense about the Fu family's heirs having a hard time. If the Fu family's heirs were in trouble, she wouldn't have gotten pregnant the first time. And one pregnancy means two. I don't know if Fu Xuanyi is lucky or if she is pregnant. "Mom, don't say this again from now on, and don't tell anyone outside that our family's heirs are in trouble. Please think about it from time to time." And Zizi. Isn't it an accident for Shishi and Zizi? That brat just happened to be lucky. Next time, his luck may not be so good. Wei Yuxian shook his head, "Then I don't want to take risks." "You, don't think about these things all day long. When you have free time, think more about Shishi and Zizi. They are right in front of you." Fu's mother could only stop talking about this matter, although she still wanted to have more grandchildren. But if Yuxian didn't want to give birth, she wouldn't force it. Yuxian's body was important, and she couldn't let her body collapse because of giving birth. Giving birth was a big hurdle, and she didn't want anything to happen to Yuxian. Wei Yuxian had breakfast and went to the baby's room to see if the two babies were awake. If they were, she would feed them some milk. If they were not, she would learn to knit hats from the nanny. She wanted to knit a cute little hat for her two little babies. After entering, before the two babies woke up, Wei Yuxian learned to knit hats from the nanny. Each of them held 2 small sharpened sticks and a ball of wool on their thighs. Wei Yuxian followed what the nanny did. The nanny slowed down her movements a lot and told her what to pay attention to while weaving. When he saw Wei Yuxian's knitting was not good, he would stop and tell her what was wrong. After knitting for a while, Zhizi woke up. As soon as he woke up, he cried, feeling hungry and asking for milk. As soon as she cried, it didn't take long for Shishi beside her to wake up and cry with her. In the room, the child cried loudly. Wei Yuxian and the nanny quickly put down the sticks and went over to comfort the two babies. Wei Yuxian asked the nanny to go out first. She fed the two babies in the room, holding one in each hand, so that the two babies would stop crying together. As soon as the two babies ate, they stopped crying and ate in large gulps, with tears still hanging on their faces. After feeding the two babies, she just burped them. After burping them, she carried the two babies out and took them out to play. After going downstairs, she saw Fu Xuanyi getting up and eating breakfast. She walked over with a smile and said, "Axuan, are you awake? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Fu Xuanyi took Zhizi from her hand, lightened her burden, and said, "Enough sleep. The sun is out today, I want to take them out to bask in the sun." "Wait a minute, I'll go with you." Wei Yuxian smiled and replied, "Okay."